All right, welcome back to the program. Eben Joels, the country lead at Stransact RSM International, is joining me right now. Good morning, Mr. Joels, and thank you for joining us today.
Good morning, Nancy. Can you hear me very well?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. How are you today?
Oh, very well. Thank you. It's raining cats and dogs, as they say here in Lagos. So,
Oh,
in case you don't hear me or the internet connection is bad,
oh.
just, yeah.
Thank you for that weather report. We had our own rains here in Abuja, I think 2 days ago. So it's over to you, Lagos. We are already in the raining season, though I think the hydrological services and the agencies responsible have warned Nigerians and warned states that there could be flooding this year, and I hope that they listen. Anyway, we're not talking weather today, but somehow we're talking weather, economic weather, so to speak. So let's get started with fuel subsidy. I don't know if you were watching earlier where we did a report about how Nigerians feel about the planned fuel subsidy removal and the grants by the World Bank to the federal government in the tune of $800 million. I'd like to get your insight as to the fuel subsidy removal. What do you think? And I would like you to juxtapose it against a backdrop of a school of thought. In fact, from our respondents, some of our respondents said that things will be difficult for Nigerians and that they should leave the subsidy. Some of the school of thought also that this subsidy is just a scam, as it were. Is a scam, that we don't know how many liters of fuel that we consume in the country. The figures keep changing, and that the regime should be thoroughly investigated. And if it is investigated, subsidy can actually remain because Nigeria is an oil-producing country. So just oppose your insight on some of these issues.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nancy, for the opportunity you've given me to add my little voice to the issues Nigeria is facing economically. And these issues are at the bottom of all our problems is intention, genuine intention to improve the welfare of the average Nigerian. Um I mean, we've not had leaders who are genuinely committed to improving the overall welfare of the average Nigerian. That is at the bottom of it. Um, why this is important is because if you have genuine intentions, you would always look at issues holistically. You're not going to look at how to just firefight one particular issue. An example of such firefight approach would be the recent Naira redesign policy and cashless policy that made some people suffer seriously. The second issue is that there is no consequence for bad behavior, if you like, or uh, bad uh, management when you or abuse of office. The consequences are not there. There are people who have abused their offices based on policies, or people who introduce policies just to enrich themselves over the years, and nothing has happened to them. Now, let me explain very clearly, Nancy. What the people who use the word scam are not far from the truth, and there are many facets or ways of this scam. My own position very quickly is that if we continue to have different exchange rate regime, and you go ahead to remove subsidy, the scam will continue in another way. It will continue in how the importers, if NNPC is no longer monetizing it will continue in how the importers access foreign exchange. So if you remove fuel subsidy and the fuel price goes up to say 800 naira a liter from 180, the average Nigerian will start feeling the pain immediately. But if the importers are able to access dollars at 460, while the average genuine businessman is forced to source his dollars from the open market at 740. The person who is importing for has continued the scam one way or the other. So I think um, a serious government will first of all look at, do we really want an open market economy? If we do that, the first thing we should be thinking of would be to eliminate the multiple exchange rate regime that we have. Then we truly have an open market system, where people can use their money, access dollars, import, sell. You know that what is the true cost of importation? As it is, the true cost of importation cannot be measured where there are multiple exchange rate regimes. So that in a nutshell is my own initial contribution. But if you have other questions, we'll
Okay.
take it off from there.
Yeah, let me just follow up on what you said. Should I allude to the fact that the different exchange rates that we have right now in the country, because I just mentioned earlier, the official exchange rate is as at yesterday, close of business yesterday, 462 naira. We're seeing also the street market rate is higher than that. Are you saying because of that differential in exchange rates in the country, that is also impacting petrol
That
importation in the country, so anybody can just put any price? Is that what you're saying? Is that why we're seeing those
what I'm
discrepancies?
saying is that is the scam at the bottom of our economic issues. A few years ago, um, an eminent personality, a former CBN governor, an emir, a prince with a blue spoon, said a lot of big men need not do anything anymore in Nigeria. You just cross your leg and you get allocated $1 million, and a Malan collect it, and the next day you make immediately in 5 minutes you make $1 billion or something. A member of the House of Rep from Kano State, I think he's Honorable Dogunwa. I may be wrong, but I believe he's the one who has said something similar. This information is out there, So if any government person wants to do you a favor, he gives you dollars at the official exchange rate, which you can immediately sell at open market. So, and you sell it at the open market, you're already making 300 and a margin of 350 naira for every single dollar without raising your finger. If you don't eliminate that system first before you go on to remove fuel subsidy, you are just tightening the nozzle. You are tightening a rope on the neck of the average Nigerian. Because again, just like we average Nigerians, the masses suffered the cashless policy, which some of us saw clearly, and we warned everybody at that time. I'm again telling you that if you remove fuel subsidy and you don't tackle the multiple exchange rate regime, what you're going to have is the scam will continue. It will only continue this time through how people access exchange rate, but the average Nigerian will just bear the increased price, but the impact of that open market, which the government wants to achieve in fuel subsidy, will not be seen. The fuel subsidy will continue. The fuel subsidy scam will continue in another way, in how importers or licensed importers, if this is open to others outside of the NNPC, access foreign exchange. So I'm saying, don't put the cart before the horse. Put the horse and let the horse draw the cart. And in this instance, the first thing you should do is eliminate the obvious fraud that is there, the obvious scam that
Okay,
everybody
Mr.
can see, which is a big man can easily access dollars at official rate and sell it immediately at the open market rate. Eliminate that loophole first before you start talking of subsidy removal.
Okay, but Mr. Joels, as at now, I do know that the NNPC Limited is the only entity that imports fuel. And they do that at the official exchange rate. I don't think they do that with the street price, because there are no marketers that are importing right now. The NNPC Limited is the official, importer of fuel. So it's not doing that at the black market rate, because I do know that the currency change it's the official rate through the Central Bank of Nigeria. So
Okay, Nancy,
yes,
Nancy, I'm not cutting you, but I'm looking at issues holistically. I'm looking at the entire Nigerian economy, and I'm telling you what the real issue is. The real issue is that there limited inflow of foreign direct investment. If you check the amount of foreign direct investment that we have attracted over the last 10 years compared to the 10 years prior to that, there's a significant decline. And we work directly with businesses, we work directly with investors coming to Nigeria for the first time. And inability to access foreign exchange freely, inability, you bring in your dollars, you're unable to take it out freely, is one of the reasons foreign investors fear to come invest in this market. And I'm also telling you that there are two very eminent personalities that have told you that to they exploit that loophole to enrich themselves. Because if the official exchange rate is not you can bid for it and it's not available. We are all witnesses to what the airlines were talking about. Air ticket prices are skyrocketing because the airlines are saying we sell air tickets in naira, we are unable to repatriate our money back to our home countries in dollars because we spend dollars where we're coming from, we don't spend naira. There are many businesses like that. So now, if you go ahead and start a regime where you open fuel importation to only NNPC, don't forget that if you remove fuel subsidy, one of the immediate impact is that only NNP there will no longer be a monopoly of importation by NNPC. That
so
is
the,
the implication.
do you think that the prices would will
Means you're
reduce?
trying to make the
Mr. Joels,
petrol.
can you hear me? If the market is
Yes,
if the market is indeed deregulated, as it were, and we don't see the NNPC only bringing in products, do you think that that would stabilize the price of petrol? Have it in mind
that should
also,
be.
have it in mind that diesel, it's deregulated. Kerosene, I think, is also deregulated. But we're seeing that the prices of those commodities are also high. So with
Yeah,
the issue of, okay, let everybody go, marketers can assess, do you think that it will stabilize the price of petrol?
there are two different things. The price of petrol, the stability is based on international events because petrol, diesel, PMS, they're all um, international commodities whose prices fluctuate based on global events, wars, US, United States government stock levels. So stability of prices based on international events will always be exposed to that as long as our energy sources are these things. However, availability, that is one, and the fact that availability, which is one of the biggest things, and artificial scarcity that creates price hikes that enrich a few people unofficially, where official selling price of petrol today at 180. If you take a drive from here to Kogi State, I can assure you that you would find very few gas stations selling you petrol at 180. Okay, so already they are already selling two. If you get 250, 280, you will be happy to pay because all you're bothered about, all the average person wants is availability. And when things are freely available, then you can be sure that the prices will move towards the open market price, which is already happening. The open market price for petrol in Nigeria is not 180, it's closer to 280. So what I'm saying is that eliminate all these artificial barriers, you crash the price closer to open market, and but you should do that first for the foreign exchange market because that is what drives a lot of things. If you're really interested in fixing this economy, the first thing you should do is not to be talking about fuel subsidy removal. Is to talk about cleaning up our having a single foreign exchange regime that is market driven. That is the first reform you should do. Then next, if that happens, automatically If NNPC is unable to recover its cost at open market prices, then fuel subsidy would automatically be forced, will be removed. Then we'll know the true cost of subsidy at that time, and then we'll talk about how best to apply the grant that the Nigerian government has received. Grants of such nature are not meant to be shared to individuals, irrespective of their list. You know, they should be used to provide critical intervention infrastructure that makes life easier for the average person, rather than to be given out as cash grants to individuals based on sometimes the political voting list. So I think that intention, genuine intention to develop this country, is what we need from our leaders at the top, and hopefully one day we'll have it. Look at everything holistically, not just attack one thing at the, without looking at the impact or looking at the root causes, which is what we are talking about here.
Okay, Mr. Joe, how do you think that the exchange rates should be normalized? The official rate is 462 as of yesterday. The street rate is going for over 700 naira. What do you think can be done, you know, that we can get this solved? Because there was a time in Nigeria that exchange rate was normal for years. I think about 150, it climbed to about 165, then it went to 195, and at that time we were crying, then it went to 210, but now it is 462. What can be done to normalize exchange rates? That's one. The second question, since we're also talking about oil, is oil production. Of course, I think since December last year, we've seen our oil production soaring up to about or over 1 million barrels per day. We saw towards the middle of last year, almost to the end of last year, that Nigeria's oil production volume was very low, and we saw that oil price was trading close to $100 last year, and we weren't even making money from it. Instead, we were more indebted. We were just piling up our debt profile. So I would like you to attend to these two questions.
Okay, Nancy, you've asked so many questions at the
I
same time.
asked you.
So some of us are growing old, so it's not so easy to look at all these questions at the same time. So, but the first issue you raised, which is talking about
Exchange
the
rates.
exchange rate. The first thing is, in any sector where we chased the government out, there was progress. You can check the history of Nigeria. Take, for example, today now, everybody has a telephone. Internet access continues to grow every year, irrespective of the economy. That was because by 2021, when the GSM companies came in, Nitel's monopoly over our telecoms was eliminated. So the government companies and governments overbearing influence in that sector was eliminated. And what happened? The inefficiencies in managing those things showed clearly when the government company Nitel died. But what has happened since then? The private companies that are running the GSM companies are some of the biggest companies in Nigeria today. They've grown exponentially. So what I'm saying is, government has no business fixing exchange rates if we are running a truly open market economy. There's no open market economy where the fixing exchange rate. Even if you want to fix exchange rate and you have much, but we are not earning enough dollars to sustain 462. That is the fact. We are not earning enough dollars, and we are not earning enough dollars because the foreigners who bring in dollars, since we spend naira, do not want to come in here, because every time they bring in their dollars, they struggle to take out their profits, even after paying all the taxes, because the dollars is simply not available in the banks. All of it is being used to fund fuel importation. So I'm saying, fix that, irrespective of what the rate is. It is better to know that government has no hand at all in what the naira's value is, than for government to be fixing artificial exchange rate values that are not sustainable. that does not measure, is not a good indication of the direction of the economy. So if government is not fixing exchange rate and it is determined by market forces, naira will find its true value in the market. It will be based on market forces. We don't know what that is, but demand and supply will fix what the true value of the naira is. And I'm saying if you do that, you close a very big hole of scam that connected people currently perpetrate to earn money without doing any work. Because if I'm properly connected as I speak to you, Nancy, someone can allocate me $1 million. There is not even naira backed. And right there, within 10 minutes, according to a very high ranking member of the House of Rep who disclosed this, within 10 minutes, he said, you will get an alert from your Bureau de change person who is willing to buy that $1 million at 760 or 740. Meanwhile, it was given to you and you are supposed to provide 450 to or 460 to the CBN or to the bank who allocated it to you. So in 10 minutes, you make the difference between 740 and 430. About 300 million naira in 10 minutes is made by a connected person in Nigeria, taking advantage of all this. Now, how many connected persons do you know there are? Once you are a politician, that is why it's easy to buy a house every day if you are well connected here in Nigeria. While people who work very hard to earn legitimate income, those are the people that drive economies global. Those are the people. When you say economy, it is the people who work. It is not people who use their phone illegally. So what I'm saying is close that door of scam. Close it. Close it
Okay.
immediately by eliminating the multiple exchange rate regime that we have. The second issue you talked about is a consequence of all these things. When you are doing all these things, genuine investors are running out of Nigeria, even in the oil and gas industry. So naturally, our production volumes will fall. I think way back, our production volume was close to $2.4 million, 2.4 million
Million
barrels per
barrels.
day.
Yeah.
And we're hoping that by this time we'll even be at 3 million barrels per day. But without additional investment, right, in that sector, the IOCs, the international oil companies, are all leaving Nigeria. They're trying to sell their assets and leave. And when they leave, they hand it over to local companies. And local companies are the same Nigerians that are sometimes corrupt.
Let's do what we can to making sure that our ordinary households don't fall into hunger. They can't feed themselves.
If you continue to do the same thing and expect a different result, then there's something wrong with you.
But there's a field for everyone to play. And we see a potential contribution of all partners, including local oil companies, in the short term and also in the long term.
But what we're discovering now is financial resilience matters.
This is where we keep you up to speed with everything in finance, business, markets, economy. After all, it's Moneyline with me, Nancy. So welcome again, and let's do it again today. All right, welcome back. Eben Joels is still with me, country lead, Stransact and RSM International. Mr. Joels, sorry for that. You initially warned us about the weather in Lagos where it's raining cat and dog, so I guess that is interfering with the network connection. But as we end the program, I would like to get your comments because I know the kind of work that you do here in Nigeria. You also talk to people investors that want to come into the country. I'd like to get your insights regarding Nigeria's banking industry. SVB, Signature, the Silicon Valley Bank. There's also Signature Bank. You know, so many things in this head. Okay, SVB collapsing. What do you think? What are the lessons we can learn? I just came back from Washington, D.C. And in fact, I attended a session that talked about the fiscal monitor as well as the global financial stability of the world. And the issue around banks sufficed. And while I was there listening to the conversations going on, I was just saying to myself that this problem could actually be more than they want us to know. You know, but they will not want us to know that. Talking about European banks and US banks. But what do you think are the lessons we can learn here? And do you think that our banks are adequately regulated?
The lessons are that bankers should learn to manage, regulate their appetites for profit, right? For instant profit, for quick profit. If you put depositors' funds into junk bonds or into bonds that are going to give you immediate returns without looking at the risk properly, even sovereign bonds issued by governments, when a government defaults, it pulls a lot of people down with it, especially banks. For Nigerian banks, I think we should be looking more at things within Africa. For example, I know that a lot of banks were exposed based on their investments on the Ghana government bonds. And if the Ghana government bonds, if the rating for the Ghana government bonds was reduced to close to junk status recently, it took a lot of banks with it because the yield from investment in bonds issued by the Ghanaian government was one of the highest in the world. And if we don't take care, if our own bond rating keep getting reduced over the next 4 or 5, over the next 4 years, for example, we don't find a way to fix our economy, yeah, we'll pull our banks down with it. So what I will say is that banks in Nigeria in particular should note that even though some of the safest investments you should have should be ordinarily government bonds, but what's clear is that a honest businessman in our own environment is a better investment than government bonds issued by corrupt and insincere government. So I think that in a summary is what it is. Instead of rushing to your money in government bonds, where the government is a corrupt government that is insincere, they're not using the bonds to do what they say they want to do, and the risk of loss is very high. And when they default, all your depositors' funds will be gone. But if
Okay.
you use that funds to say, okay, let me invest in a honest businessman, then you stimulate the economy, and you balance your risk.
Okay. Okay, I think we're going to leave it at that, but you've raised some interesting sides to the questions which I asked, the issue about Ghana. And I know that Ghana's economy and our economy are not really exposed to the same vagaries right now. Ghana is in a real economic mess. At Washington, D.C., 2 weeks ago while I was there, of course, the IMF is giving Ghana about $3 billion. The city is really off the roof. So it's not really experiencing the same economic mess as Nigeria is. I wanted to put that by the way. And some other interesting thing I'll take off is Nigeria's exchange rate, which I will look at, especially as this new incoming administration will take over May 29. What are the perspectives that this new government will bring that may, make Nigeria beautiful again before the eyes of investors? But thank you very much, Mr. Joels, for joining us today. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you so much.
All right. Eben Joels is the country lead at Stransact and RSM International. We've been talking about Nigeria's economic health from a different perspective, not just about GDP. When you're talking of economic health, economists will tell you GDP, but it's more than that. All right, that's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. Thank you all for joining us. Before I go, it's Freedom Day in South Africa today. Yes, it's South Africa's Independence Day. South Africa 29. Yes, before I go, this day is to commemorate the, sacrifices, the lost lives. People like Nelson Mandela, what's his name again? A lot of them that sacrificed for South Africa to be what it is today. So it's Freedom Day in South Africa. So extending you know, a heartfelt commemoration to South Africa. Don't forget, South Africa is the second biggest economy in Africa. Some people say it's most advanced. Nigeria is the biggest, but that's also for argument. I'll see you all again tomorrow. Be the best you can be the change that you want to see. Bye now.